Goblin launch detected.
Hey gang, using the promo code MTGMudsta, one word, all caps, will get you 10% off orders of $10 or more at Flipside Gaming, Original Magic Art, and orders of singles at Multizone. If they don't have what you're looking for, you could check out TCG Player and use my affiliate link to help support the channel. Looking for a way to bling out your deck and not spend a fortune? Alter Sleaze can help with that, and you can help with the channel at the same time by using my affiliate link. Or, if you're looking to join the Goblin Gang, you can always support me through Patreon. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's game is another Discord one, and in what I'm sure is very refreshing for many people, I recorded the opening hands. I am playing my new 4-color Omnath deck, keeping Phantasmal Image, Swords to Plowshares, Temple of Mystery, Delay, Lotus Cobra, Irrigated Farmland, and an Unsettled Mariner. Ryan is playing Korvold, keeping Terminate, Jury, Talisman of Indulgence, Cultivate, Sheltered Thicket, and a Forest. Harry is playing the new Moritte, keeping Path of Ancestry, Breeding Pool, Galecaster Colossus, Cassetto, Sakura Tribe Elder, and a Forest. Trevor is playing Zurgo, keeping a Mountain, Solemn Simulacrum, Inquisitor's Flail, Rogue's Passage, Sajiri Shelter, Ghost Quarter, and Wheel of Fortune. I win the die roll and start us off. I play a tapped Temple of Mystery, scrying 1 as it enters. Ryan plays a tapped Sheltered Thicket. Harry plays a Path of Ancestry, which also comes in tapped. Not wanting to break the mold, Trevor plays a tapped Sajiri Glacier. I don't want to be the first one to blink, so I play a tapped Irrigated Farmland. Ryan plays a Swamp, breaking the chain, and he casts a Talisman Indulgence. Harry plays a Snow-Covered Forest, and casts Sakura Tribe Elder. He scries 1 with a Path, and passes. Trevor plays a tapped Isolated Chapel. I tap 2 for my turn, and cast a Lotus Cobra, and then play a Polluted Delta, making a green from the Cobra as it comes in. I then lose 1, sacrificing the land to go and find a Breeding Pool, taking 2 so it comes in untapped, which I now realize is unnecessary. I make another mana with it for the Cobra as well, and cast Phantasmal Image, which comes in as a copy of the Cobra. Ryan plays a Forest and casts Cultivate. He passes as he goes to find a basic for the field and 1 for his hand. Harry plays a tapped Breeding Pool, and then casts Wood Elves. He passes as he searches. Trevor plays a Plateau, and just casts Inquisitor's Flail, passing back to me. I draw for turn, and pay 3 mana for Rites of Flourishing. I then play a Boros Garrison, which comes in tapped, and I make 2 mana as the land comes in for my Cobras, and then bounce a land back to hand. I then replay the bounced Temple of Mystery, scrying 1, and getting 2 more mana. I use it to cast Omnath, and he comes in, and I draw a card, and I pass to Ryan. Ryan draws his 2, plays a Forest and a Mountain for turn, and then drops Catacomb Sifter. It comes in, making him an Eldrazi Scion token, and he then casts Jury once that's done, passing to Harry. Harry draws his 2 and plays a Wirewood Lodge and a Hinterland Harbor. He casts Agent of Treachery, who comes in and steals my Omnath, and then passes turn. At the end of turn, Ryan uses Terminate to blow up Omnath. Trevor draws his 2 and plays a Ghost Quarter and a Mountain. 4 mana gets him a Smothering Tithe, and he passes turn. I draw my card for my Rights trigger, paying the 2 for the Tithe. I then draw for turn, letting Trevor have a treasure. I play an island, making 2 mana from the Cobras, and tap the island to cast Cultivate. I find a basic for the field, making 2 more mana from the Cobras, and then play a Plains, making 2 more. I use some of it for an Unsettled Mariner, and then pass to Ryan. Ryan doesn't pay for either draws, and Trevor gets his treasures. Ryan then casts Korvold in his main phase, who enters and has him sacrifice a permanent. He draws and gets to put a counter on Korvold and Jury, while Trevor gets a treasure. Ryan then taps his Talisman, land, and sacrifices a sign for mana, giving Jury and Korvold another counter, while drawing a card from Korvold's trigger, and Trevor gets a treasure. He uses that mana for Kadama's Reach, and goes to find some basics. He plays a Mountain from hand, and then a Blood Crypt, taking 2. He casts Rakdos Signet, and then moves to combat. Jury heads at Trevor, hitting him for 3, and Ryan passes. Harry draws his 2 and pays for one of the tithe triggers, with Trevor only getting 1 treasure. He plays a snow-covered forest, and we then see his commander hitting the field. She comes in as a copy of the agent, stealing Trevor's smothering tithe, and Harry then passes turn. Trevor draws and doesn't pay the 2, so Harry gets his treasures. Trevor then plays a Rogue's Passage and casts a Soul Ring. He then drops Solemn Simulacrum to go and find a basic. Trevor then uses some of the treasures to cast a Phyrexian Arena, followed by Indomitable Archangel, which has Metalcraft active. He puts the flail into the Solemn and passes turn. I draw my first card, paying the 2, and then my second, paying 2 more to keep Harry from getting treasures. I play a Gruul Turf, which comes in and gets me 2 mana from the Cobras, and bounce a basic. I then replay that basic, getting 2 more mana from the Cobras. I then tap 2 lands for Omnath, drawing as he comes in. Harry gets some treasures, and I then tap a blue and a green for Neoform, sacrificing Omnath to go and find a 5-drop. I grab a Shia and put it to the field. I then use the rest of my mana to cast Goblin Bombardment, passing to Ryan. Ryan draws his 2 and gives Harry 2 treasures. He taps 5 for a Moldervine Reclamation, and then plays a Sifter of Skulls. Moving to combat, Korvold goes at Harry. This has Ryan sacrificing the Catacomb Sifter, getting to draw a card, and gives Harry 2 more treasures, and puts a counter onto both Jury and Korvold. Harry then takes the hit for 7, and Ryan also realizes he gets a Scion token from the Sifter, and passes to Harry. Harry draws his 2, and plays a land. He casts Reflections of Littjara, which I delay for 3 turns with delay. 7 mana then gets him a Galecaster Colossus, and I'm still pretty pleased with my choice of spell to counter, but I'm a little bit worried. He then plays a Masked Vandal, and gets a Path trigger from casting it, scrying 1. It then enters, and Harry exiles the Sakur Tribe Elder from his graveyard to use the Vandal's Enter the Battlefield trigger. He exiles the Moldervine Reclamation, and passes to Trevor. Trevor loses 1 to the arena, drawing from it, and then draws 2 more, with Harry getting 3 treasures. He gets a good chuckle once we realize that Trevor can now use his Ghost Quarter as creature removal because of a Shia on my side of the board making all of my creatures into forests, and he then casts a Steel Shaper's Gift. He goes to find an equipment, grabbing to hand a Hammer of Nazan, and then casting it. He equips it onto the Archangel, and then drops Sword of War and Peace. This gets equipped onto the Archangel as well, and he swings it at me. I take the hit for 8, and then lose 3 from the sword trigger, while Trevor gains 3, and he passes to me. I draw, paying 2 for the tithe trigger, and then draw again from the rights, paying 2 again. I then pay 1 white for Swords to Plowshares, and targets Harry's Galecaster Colossus. He activates it, thinking he can bounce my stuff, but his non-land permanence and a Shia makes my creatures into lands, so he has to bounce Korvold to Ryan's hand. He then taps the Vandal to bounce Jury, and he then bounces Trevor's Angel, and the Colossus is finally exiled with Harry gaining 5. I then tap 3 mana to cast Crucible of Worlds, and play the Delta from my yard. I then tap the rest of my lands and some of my now forest creatures to help cast Omnath. He comes in and sees himself as a forest, gaining me 4 life, and drawing me a card. I then lose 1 as I sacrifice my Delta to go and find a land, and it's a Mystic Sanctuary, which comes in untapped because I have 3 islands, and I put Neoform on top of my library. It's the second land that Omnath sees, and I get a red, blue, green, and white mana. I then play Temple Garden, which is the third land Omnath sees, and it deals 4 damage to each opponent and each planeswalker they control before I pass to Ryan. Ryan draws his 2, and Harry gets his treasures. Ryan then recasts Jury, and plays out his own Sakur Tribe Elder. He plays a Tap Polluted Mire, and then casts Korvold. The dragon enters, and Ryan sacrifices the Mire to draw a card from Korvold, and gives it and Jury a +1/+1 counter, while Harry gets 2 more treasures. Ryan then passes turn. Harry draws his cards, and plays a Tropical Island for his land drop. He plays Cassetto, and uses some treasures to cast Quasali Slingers. They enter, and blow up the Crucible after he pays the 1. Harry then drops Master of Waves, and gets 6 elemental tokens as it enters. He then activates Cassetto to make Moritte, who's every type, unblockable, and gets +2/+2. This lets him swing at me for 7, which I can't stop, and he then passes to Trevor. Trevor loses 1 from the arena, and then draws a card from the rights and then for turn, with Harry getting 3 treasures. He plays a tap Temple of Silence, scrying 1, and puts to stack Catastrophe, picking the mode to wipe the board of creatures. Ryan sacrifices his Sakura Tribe Elder, drawing a card from Korvold, and giving it and Jury another counter, while Harry gets 2 more treasures. He also gets a sign from the Sifter trigger when a creature dies. He then sacrifices the 2 Scions for mana, getting 2 more draws and putting 2 more counters onto Korvold and Jury, while Harry gains 4 more treasures. I then sacrifice my board to the bombardment, blasting Trevor, and the wipe then happens, with Trevor getting hit by Jury's trigger. Trevor then plays a tap Bajuka Bog, exiling Ryan's graveyard, and before passing turn, plays a Sword of Light and Shadow. I draw my 2, letting Harry have his treasures. I then cast Reviarch, and recast the Neoform that I just drew, sacrificing the Elemental and bringing back the Cobra and the Mariner from its on-death trigger, and then tutoring for a creature. I put out Avatar of Growth, which, I'll be honest, isn't the best card, but it's one I've wanted to play since I saw Tomer use it. This lets the table go and find 2 basics each that come in untapped. I get 2 mana from mine because the Cobras see them coming in, and I then pass, with Ryan cycling his Baron more at the end of turn to draw a card, and giving Harry more treasures because he's a nice guy. Ryan untaps and draws. He plays a Care Keep and then a Nurturing Peatland. He plays his own copy of Goblin Bombardment and then drops Grumgully. Once the legendary is resolved, we then see Ryan put to stack a Murderous Redcap, which is a combo when involved with the Grumgully and Goblin Bombardment. The Redcap then enters, dealing 3 to Harry, which I correct later on, and he sacrifices the Bombardment, dealing 1 to Harry as well. With the Persist trigger hitting the stack, Harry overloads a Cyclonic Rift. It bounces our stuff back to hand, and the Redcap then comes in, dealing 1 more to Harry. Ryan then recasts the Talisman and plays his Signet. And he still has enough to recast the Goblin Bombardment, doing so, and then passing to Harry. Harry draws for turn, and then plays out Unesh in his main phase. He gets the Factor Fiction trigger, and I make the piles like this. Harry takes the one with the Sanctum, and puts those to hand. He then plays the Sanctum of Eternity for a turn, and recasts his commander, and has it come in as a copy of the Tithe once more. He then passes to Trevor. Trevor doesn't pay for the draws, and Harry gets 2 treasures. He casts a Chromatic Lantern, and then taps it for Soul Ring. Balin then hits the field, and Trevor recasts the Hammer of Nizan, which enters and attaches onto him. And Trevor then casts Swiftfoot Boots, which are attached onto Balin. He then casts the wheel he's had in his hand since the start of the game, because neither he, nor Harry, nor I have an answer to the combo that Ryan will be trying to re-establish on his next turn. He's not thrilled with the idea of giving Harry 1,000,000 treasures, but it's better than losing to the combo that we know that Ryan has. I do pay to deny Harry 3 of the treasures though. Trevor then goes to combat, and swings Balin at Harry. Harry doesn't block, and takes the double strike hit, taking 5 and then 5, and Trevor then passes. I draw, and Harry gets his treasures. I recast Omnath, drawing a card, and Harry gets more. I then play Kessig Wolfrun, gaining 4 life from Omnath, and pass. Ryan draws, and Harry gets treasures. Ryan then plays Solemn, grabbing a basic that comes in tapped from his library. He recasts Korvold, sacrificing the Solemn, and drawing a card from Korvold, and drawing a card from Solemn dying. He puts a +1/+1 counter onto it, and then he plays what must be one of the cards he drew as a Reclamation Sage comes in and blows up the Smothering Tithe. Ryan then takes 1 from the Nurturing Peatlands as he revokes Shriekmaw to try and blow up Unesh. This has Harry responding, using Repudiate to counter the Enter the Battlefield trigger. Because he evoked it, Ryan also has to sacrifice the Shriekmaw, giving Korvold another counter and drawing from it. Ryan then passes, and at the end of turn, Harry casts Growth Spiral. He draws a card, and then plays a land from hand, and moves to his turn. Harry gets to cast his Reflections of Lajara finally, after removing the final delay counter. He picks Wizards as it enters. He then uses 2 treasures to activate the Sanctum, and returns his commander to hand. He recasts them, and gets a token copy of it from the Reflections trigger. The token comes in as a copy of Unesh, and he resolves the trigger first, sacrificing the token. I once more make the piles, and Harry takes the one with Glasspool Mimic. Moritte then enters as a copy of the reflections, and Harry picks Shapeshifter this time. He then casts Naban, the end of iteration, and then casts a clever impersonator. He gets a reflection trigger from casting this, and has the token copy come in as a copy of Unesh again. He sacrifices the token copy, but also realizes he should be getting 2 copies of Unesh's triggers instead of 1. He resolves those, and then has the actual impersonator come in as the reflections again, and this time picks Rogue. And for his second trigger, Harry takes the witness pile. He casts a Glenelendra Archmage, getting a copy as well, and then a Cold-Eyed Selkie, getting another token copy. The Glasspool Mimic then comes in, and one is a copy of Unesh, and the other the Glenelendra Archmage. He resolves the Unesh triggers, and first takes a Vidalcan Aethermage, binning 3, and then takes Venser, binning 2. Watching this in retrospect, I always get very stressed out when people make me pick piles, and Harry had me pick each of them this game, just to suffer. Harry then Wizard Cycles the Aethermage, and reveals a Biovisionary, and then casts it. He gets a token copy of it from Reflections, and then casts Venser. He gets a token copy, who enters, and gets 2 triggers per Venser from Naban. He bounces his own Glasspool Mimic back to hand, and then the Goblin Bombardment, and then the real Venser enters, bouncing itself back to hand, and my Temple Garden. Harry is then able to cast the Mimic once more, making a token copy, and both come in as a Biovisionary. He then passes to the end step, and with no way to kill one, Harry wins the game from the Biovisionary trigger. Game review time. Oof, that Wheel of Fortune was a tough call, and I do not envy Trevor being in that position. It was an answer to Ryan's combo. I do think I would have made the same decision in his place, since dealing with the combo you know versus worrying about a combo that may come up is definitely the right answer. Harry did gain a lot of treasures from it, but it's not as though he was guaranteed to draw into anything. I'm a big fan of Moritte. I love the new frame, and I think it's really interesting to have a commander who can come in as a copy of anything on your side of the field, which is fantastic. Korvold, as always, is a great Jund Dragon, although I'm not too sure if I'm interested enough to swap Prosh into him yet though. I'm still on the fence over whether or not I enjoy 4-color Omnath over Horde of Notions. By removing the black, I have less options for elementals, not to mention that Omnath wants to be able to play a bunch of lands a turn, which means I need to water down the deck, and therefore cut out even more elementals. I'll probably keep it around to test out a bit more, but I already have a landfall deck with Titania. Please be sure to tune in every Monday and Thursday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time for a guaranteed new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at MTGMudsta. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/mtgmudsta. And lastly, you can check me out when I stream at twitch.tv/mtgmudsta. This video is brought to you in support by my patrons. If you're looking for a way to help out the channel, please be sure to visit the link below. Thank you all for watching this video, and don't forget, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.